So we're going to talk about digital and green transition. We're going to talk about the challenges for Italian supply chains. And we're going to do that with the protagonists of different consortia and different organizations. Many amongst those who are following us from home know very well who we're talking about. So I think we are ready. So I would like to invite here on the podium the president of the Consorzio of Parmigiano, Reggiano, Bertinelli, the president of the Caviro Group, Carlo Dalmonte, we have connected the president of Granarolo, Calzolari. Good morning, good afternoon. We've got here the president of CGBI, Gabriele Lanfredi. Good afternoon. The president of Unaprol, Daniele Granieri. Remotely, Luigi Scordamaglia, managing director from Inalma. No, apparently he's not here. He's not connected yet. But we've got the vice president of institutional relations of CNH Industrial, Michele Ziosi. And then Filippo Gallinella, president of the... Oh, he's here already. Welcome. He's president of the Farming Commission of the Chamber of Deputies, and Giampaolo Ballardi, president of the Farming Commission of the Senate. So the last part of this panel will be devoted to them, and they will come on stage later to conclude this day of works. So, it was a very intense day. It was a day that focused on the presentation of Farming for Future. It was a day devoted to the new frontiers of Italian products regarding the agri-food transition, the energy transition. So we are really in the middle of a great revolution. So with you, who are the protagonists of this market in Italy and this world, we would like to elaborate on the questions we have addressed today. I will start with the first, Nicola Bertinelli, with the first panelist, Nicola Bertinelli, president of the Consortium for Parmesan Cheese, Parmigiano Reggiano, one of the most important products with a very clear and strict list of specifications. So the Parmigiano Reggiano has become one of the excellence in examples in Italy. What have you done to reach that target by 2030? First of all, thank you for inviting me, and I would like to thank also the president of CIB, who's also a producer of Parmigiano Reggiano, so he's a member of our consortium. Well, we're not talking about academic work here. Think about 2015. Three things happened simultaneously. The Paris Agreement. So countries that by 2030 set a number of deadlines. Then the Expo in Milan. So the Charter of Milan. But the Pope released the encyclical letter Laudato Si, reminding us of our task to protect our world. So the need to decouple production models from resource consumption and exploitation. Well, people might think it was just something scholarly, something in theory, and then the pandemic happened, and that is a great catalyst. The European Union published the Green Deal, the Farm to Fork, but it's the citizens that were surprised, because the distribution channel closed by decree. Citizens couldn't go out, and it was up to them to buy what they wanted to eat. So the impact of certain products became greater and greater, so 100% Italian products. Products that have a connection with the quality of life. Food becomes an instrument to improve the quality of life, and products that have direct connection with the respect for animal rights and sustainability. And all this was done by purchasing something. Well, it is ethical and moral duty. But this is something that is going to happen regardless of the will of businesses. So businesses must think about these options. Well, let's talk about Parmigiano Reggiano. We have the idea of Parmesan cheese, but few people maybe know that we've got 307 dairy mills that are part of our consortium that purchase milk from 2,500 breeders that operate in mountain and hilly areas. Then dairy mills sell to those who let the cheese season, and then they distribute to retailers. If we want that everything we're talking about today releases its full value, well, this sector must share a project. And by sector, I also refer to citizens and consumers. It is important to guarantee information so that there's no speculation around the questions we are talking about today. And this speculation derives from information that is biased or production models that are misleading. Just a short digression. The Italian agri-food sector, 140 billion euro. This year we're going to record 140 billion euro of exports, 100 million euro of Italian sounding products. We're talking about a pie that is worth 340 billion euro. This is a pie that is very mouth-watering and is very appealing. How can you compete if you don't have 600 different types of core meats or 250 types of cheese? So you are challenging how everything is done. You challenge the fact that breeding is detrimental for animals, that using the soil to grow crops is detrimental to the environment. And so the basal products that derive from fermentation are also included in this. In Israel, you might find meat at a production cost of €4 per kilo, and this meat is produced with stem cells, so it doesn't come from actual animals. Or we could have cheese without milking cows, because the model is being questioned, it's being challenged. So what we're talking about today, well, be careful. It is something that we have to take very seriously and fast. We have to be aware of this, because we have some forces that are competing with each other, taking advantage of the sensitivity that citizens have towards these questions to fight a battle. For example, the question of Nutri-Score is part of these issues, and information, incorrect information to citizens can be misleading in choices. Parmesan cheese, Parmigiano Reggiano, is, first of all, a very sustainable model, because according to the specifications, at least 50% of what cows are eating is forage. So, so the specifications are very carbon fixing. We got alfalfa, we've got fodder, we've got resources, and the combination between breeding and fields makes it possible to have some carbon sequestration from the atmosphere. But as consortium, we're going to become the control room to make sure that the whole sector, the whole chain, can actually exploit the opportunity that the National Recovery and Resilience Plan is offering us. So the roofs or our sheds must become PV plants, or droppings or manure must be turned into energy. The big news is that a consortium that was born in 1934, that has always protected the product, so the shape, a few years back has begun to launch policies to protect the well-being on animals. So we invested more than 15 million euro in breeding farms, so that a step forward could be taken to be consistent with the positioning of Parmigiano Reggiano. So what the consortium is going to do now is to be protagonists, to make sure that the whole chain of Parmigiano Reggiano, to fit the 10 actions of Farming for Future, can be aligned, but above all to make sure that citizens are informed correctly, because everything we're talking about must not become a breeding ground for speculation. It's not time today to talk about the big fish eating the small one, because even small farms can do something. It's a question of being fast fish today. That's what matters. And this regards research and a pact on truth, not on a world that does not exist. A pact on truth, that's the only solution to be endowed with the necessary instruments. And then, of course, bureaucracy. There has to be good bureaucracy, otherwise we weren't making in such a short time. Thank you, Nicola Bertinelli.
Presidente del Consorzio del Parmigiano Reggiano.
Nicola Bertinelli, President of the Parmigiano Reggiano Consortium. The topics you address are very much topical. At the radio in the morning, we've been speaking about the Prosec with this K at the end, an Italian-sounding product that is driving our friends in the Veneto region crazy. So, from Parmigiano Reggiano, we move on to milk. Granarolo, one of the largest cooperatives that that processes milk in Europe. Calzolari, Mr. Calzolari is here with us. So, Mr. Calzolari, you is the president of Granarolo. You have been working on all these topics as well. So in your opinion, cooperation allows you to go in the direction of sustainability? Well, I think so, yes. Because when we speak about chains, supply chain, we can say that in the case of cooperatives, it's very important if we want to speak about chains. Interpreter apologizes, but the sound is very disturbed. So we have decided to take on this responsibility. Mr. Bertinelli was speaking about the impact on consumers. So we have decided to to take responsibility to start a process aimed at reducing impacts more specifically CO2 emissions that are a common topic, but of course there is a topic of water, of drugs, medicines. In our case, we've got some 700 cattle farms of various sizes, and to reach together a common goal, of course, you need a leadership or an organization. The cooperative model is the tool we are using. We have a scientific committee to make our process scientifically based. We, of course, have daily contacts with our producers. So we know how they produce milk, how it is processed, etc. Every day, we talk with our associates, our partners, that allow us to focus on certain initiatives, and we try to achieve sustainable goals and results. From a methodological standpoint, because food in this country and in the world is very much needed in growing amounts, we committed to producing more food. So we reject the idea that the solution is degrowth, so reducing production. We are committed to producing more food than we already produce, because there's a part of the world that needs food. It needs to be nourished with nutritious food. They have the same rights as all the others. So today we produce quality products. This is Italy. We want to produce quality and safety. This is what the world expects of a country such as Italy. We know that our products are copied all over the world, and for this reason, so we know that made in Italy products are very much appreciated. We have to produce more, we have to produce quality food, but using less resources, natural resources. This is where the real topic needs to be addressed. So we have to consider impacts. We can, of course, identify actions that are more or less expensive in order to reduce emissions. If we replace plastic cups for yogurt, we can use paper cups, and of course you can monitor the impact of this measure. Of course, we've got 600, 700 firms, and it's much more difficult to measure the impact of a change in practices. We need to measure these things, though, because the consumers have to be able to make their choices depending on how sensitive they are to environmental issues. Of course, if they see that your yogurt is sold in paper cups, of course they may decide to go for the paper cup rather than the plastic one. So if they know that to produce yogurt we have reduced the use of water, we have reduced the use of I don't know, pesticides, chemicals, drugs. At the end of the day, it's the consumer that has to decide and has to decide what to buy. Sorry for interrupting you, but the sound of the connection is not very good, so it's very difficult to understand what you're saying, as we hear some things and we do not hear others. But we've understood the meaning of the gist of your presentation, your words. So we have to produce more quality food, but in a sustainable manner. I hope I have summarized what you said. Yes, you did. Forgive us, but the connection is very bad and it's difficult to follow your words. Now let us move on to our friends from Unaprol, olive oil chain, another context. David Granieri is with us, president of Unaprol. So let us make a little change here. Either we can add a chair, or maybe we cannot do that because of social distancing. Anyway, we will call our guests back. So, Mr. Granieri, we are speaking about the olive oil chain here, high-quality olive oil. The sector is undergoing great changes in terms of innovation. So what type of innovations have you introduced? We've seen that today many topics involve innovation. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I wish to thank you for the awareness you bring to this topic. No doubt, the olive oil and oil sector in general is very careful to the topics of sustainability, and particularly also at this very time in history to what has to be seen as an opportunity, that of the green transition, because in actual fact the olive tree, and President Frascarelli will confirm my theory, the olive oil tree is the plant that is most capable of absorbing CO2, and particularly within the framework of production chains, it also releases CO2. So for a long time we have been working on what we could be doing. So the notion of sustainability in the past was just a fad, but now things are different. But we always believe that sustainability had to lead to reconversion and to enhance environmental protection. So our firms have been fitted with PV panels on the roofs, or we have reconverted materials for packaging. We have changed the types of packaging. We have started using materials that are more eco-friendly at the oil mill and in the countryside, in agriculture. But we thought that in our case sustainability could not stop there, because when you speak about sustainability, we also, for instance, consider how we use water. And we think that olive growing has to take a great step ahead in terms of its use of water, because our government has set ambitious goals in terms of increasing production, but we can increase production by increasing olive orchards, and for reasons of the lands that are actually available, we cannot increase production, we cannot increase the surface that much, but we can make improvements by using new irrigation models, new materials for irrigation. And I'm also thinking about irrigation or underground irrigation, but sustainability does not end here. We think that in the near future, by sustainability, we need to also consider ethical aspects. So we were thinking of introducing, transparency and accountability, and we think of sustainability as something that is also linked to other aspects. There's not going to be any transition unless we we also consider aspects, the nutritional aspects of every product, because every day we have to fight against this ghost of the Nutri-Score, which is more than simply a ghost. And we believe that nutrition can be, for the Italian model, an element of uniqueness, let's say. And when there is such a thing in a contract, it means that the contract is worth more. And for us, sustainability at the time of the green transition is no doubt also an economic type of sustainability. We need to produce so as to increase the value of production factors. We cannot imagine of competing on a standardized, homogenized markets, and we cannot think of continuing to be able to manage Italian companies that are those with the highest added value per hectare, with a global scenario which is in the hands of great traders and that are used to commodities. We don't have commodities, we have high value products. Thank you so much. So long live olive oil, one of the excellent products of Italy. There are so many, it's difficult to count. Now let us move on to Mr. Lanfredi, Gabriele Lanfredi. Here we speak about beets, CGBI, a sector that recently, in the past few years, had to be reconverted because of European policies that pushed you in this direction. You have unified this sector. So what synergies and what solutions are you using? Well, rather than diversifying, we have drastically reduced the sugar sector. There are just two firms. Well, we cannot add much value to sugar, but the beets and sugar sector still manage to do so, because if I want to, package a peach, you can do many things, but with sugar it's not so difficult. So we produce little, we consume much more, and we have to diversify the final product with intrinsic qualities that are diversified compared with the mass product that comes from all over Europe. So our sugar is very successful in supermarkets, as Mr. Bertinelli was saying. So also in connection to a product that is not so easy to create value for, we still manage to do that. So we are an association of beet producers, but together with the sugar association, we are a chain that is integrated, one of the first to having done so in this country, because the production of beets and the production of sugar depend strongly on each other. I cannot go and buy beets in Germany. I can go and get milk, but not beets in Germany, because it would be too expensive. So these two chains are very much integrated. And the chain is made up by farmers, the sugar production plant, and the coke that uses sugar. Let us remember the sugar is not just, the little sugar that we put in our coffee in the morning, but most of it is used by industrial processing firms. So the chain is very broad. Listening to what was said this morning, we heard that the chain is expanded in the sense that to make our production sustainable, we need technological innovation and technological partners. But when we speak about biomethane, if we get back to the central topic of these 2 days, the expanded chain also includes brands, also, let's say, Parmigiano, Reggiano, Barilla, Nestlé. So the projects for the sustainability of this type of productions that are sold on the market required a complete chain that also starts not just from production, but also includes transportation. How do I transport these products? And if I transport these products with lorries that are fueled with biomethane, I have created value for this chain. And if I can pay that fuel that is used for transportation a bit more, I would probably pay a bit more also for the plant that produces biomethane that uses animal waste. So this sustainability today is extended, and the chain is extended to several players, and the value that is created all along this chain. But the most important thing is taking this to production. That is where the sensitive aspect is. The things that we are discussing today is what we want to achieve. In other words, reducing CO2, making things in a sustainable way, producing biomethane. We can do that, but that is what we are discussing these days, what we are wondering about, because we've got the resources that are given to us by the Nrrp. This is an extraordinary thing. It's a unique opportunity. We have a project to make use of these resources. We've got several plants. We use byproducts, for instance, to produce biogas. We are the only example in Europe, and we have managed to integrate the price of the beetroots, despite the fact that we no longer have aid. Today we are wondering about biomethane. We have this opportunity of the Nrrp. We want to reconvert our plants, but we're wondering, is this worthwhile or not? So this is not something to be taken for granted. So for us, Green Possible, the answer to the Green Possible question is we don't know, because we need something. So we have projects, we have got money, but we don't have the rules. The rules have not yet been drafted as they should be. So if we do not want to, waste resources, projects, and opportunities, then our government, our politicians have strongly and quickly write down rules that can allow us to reach all our goals. Otherwise, we will not be able to reach any. Very clear. Thank you for your words, and we will then hear what the President of the Farm Commission, the Chamber of Deputies, will tell us. So days like this also have the aim of connecting people with decision makers. We've seen this at different level, the European Commission, the European Parliament. Now we go a bit lower, in the sense that we pass on to the domestic level in terms of governance and drafting laws. So let us move on to our friends from the Caviro Group, which is an amazing group in the sense that it made of the circular economy a feather in its cap. I met them last year when I discovered that they had also produced alcohol to disinfect your hands after the pandemic. Good morning, Carlo Dalmonte.
Vi aspettate?
What are you expecting from the implementation of the plan? You've been amongst the fastest, amongst the most innovative. Well, if we knew that we had to wait for a year, well, the National Recovery and Resilience Plan had the great benefit of indicating very clearly what's the direction to take and to make resources available. Then it will be up to businesses and to policymakers to use them well. Well, I'd say something on what we are doing as Caviro Group. Of course, we are supported by our industry. The divine industry, we don't throw anything away of the grapes. We use it all, basically. Distillation to produce alcohol is a practice that we haven't invented, so you all know what I'm talking about. So this culture is embedded in the vine growers sector. And I was talking the other day with the oldest engineers I know. We need also to purify water. And this is something that dates back to 40 years ago. So in our associations, we have always done this because, first of all, our region, Emilia-Romagna, pays great attention to environmental issues. Yes, because our water is going to end up in Emilia-Romagna anyway. So in the 1980s, we were thinking about how to regulate this water. The organic content was very high. And the activity we carried out, our business, is basically focused in 2 or 3 weeks that are key for our production. So the need to have a biodigester became evident, and we realized that we could derive value from biogas. So we developed a know-how in our group, which I believe is a best practice. So those who are from Emilia-Romagna know what I'm talking about. We have no rivals, basically. We've been acknowledged and recognized for our values. So this ability to innovate has resulted in biomethane, which we inaugurated 2 years ago. The first biomethane plant that derives from the agri-industrial sector. Then, of course, those who supply the fluids, the liquids that are cooked in these huge pots are the large industries in northern Italy, but not only them. Let's now come to what Professor Frascarelli said. So it's something that affects us every day. So the concern of our members that are farmers is not only university professors who are concerned. We feel this pressure all the time. We've got thousands of members. And we've got a cooperative that, of course, manages our consortium, and we've got 36,000 hectares. We are in the front line. We are in the front line when it comes to vine grain. So our members are very, very worried that the price to pay for this green transition, this farm to fork, is going to be on their shoulders. They told me once again, are they going to raise the bar again? Are they going to impose certifications or other obligations on us? Farmers have been heavily affected by past measures, but we're trying to reassure them. What we do, we're going to adopt the financial statements. There's going to be 400 million. Well, we have 4 million dividends from biomethane, which we distribute amongst our partners. So the path is very clear from an ethical standpoint. We are convinced that that's the direction we have to follow, because sustainability is engaging us all as citizens, even more than as entrepreneurs. So, well, the message we want to convey, though, is that it is rewarding also financially. It's not something you're going to pay for or lose money from. Of course, you need resources, you need skills, you need an R&D sector, which is not something that can be done by anyone. So a practical solution. So the message I would like to give, not as an expert, but as a representative of the industry, is that the path is the right one, but it is also cost effective. So if you're going to play well as a team, if we're going to play well with the policy makers, I'm sure we will be able to combine our business with sustainability. Sustainability which has to be, first of all, cost effective. Because if it is, the whole thing will collapse. But we're convinced we are on the right path. Thank you very much. This is something that we heard more than once today. There can't be sustainability unless there's economic sustainability, and the other organizations also in other sectors have chosen the path towards sustainability when they have realized that that is going to be advantageous from an economic standpoint. We heard it this morning when we were talking about energy. So, well, nuclear energy was set aside or phased out not for environmental reasons, basically, but because it wasn't cost effective. And in the largest group in the world that deals with green energy, the highest profits were recorded. It is the Italian multinational company that has received the best rewards and awards, for example, in London, as a company that records profits through sustainability. Then Michele Ziosi, Vice President of Institutional Relations from CNH Industrial. So, Ziosi, are you ready to answer the growing demand of the market with the, well, we assume that it's going to be like that with the National Resilience and Recovery Plan? Thank you. It's great to meet at least once a year to take stock of the situation. Well, my surname starts with a Z, so I was always the last one being questioned in school. And here too, I'm one of the last speakers, so most of the things were said already. Well, there's Cortamaya after you, so I'm not the last one this time. Anyway, I'm amongst the last speakers to take the floor, so everything has been said already. The transportation sector and the sector of agricultural mechanization is an integral part of this circle that in this context represents a pillar of circular economy that we are trying to build with all the players operating in this industry. CNH Industrial decided to invest in a technological roadmap, and the micro trends have been identified for the moment. Digitization and the lack of food are the main elements on which to build our technological progress. And we decided to invest in natural gas first and in methane afterwards, because they make perfectly sense in the context of circular economy, and especially when circular economy was not so fashionable. And by fashionable, I mean it in a positive sense. Well, this fits perfectly into a national and European context, and the National Recovery and Resilience Plan has taken all these things into account. For 20 years, Iveco has invested in engines and natural gas vehicles that reduce CO2 emissions and polluting emissions, but also noise pollution, which is something people tend to forget about. And this is something that methane and natural gas engines actually help solve. A biomethane tractor will soon be put on the market. And this is perfectly in line with the idea of an intelligent farm. Nothing is thrown away, nothing is wasted, and CO2 emissions have a positive effect from an environmental standpoint and from a climate standpoint. Just to go back to the National Recovery and Resilience Plan and green energy transition, I think this is one of the very positive elements of an integrated approach that has seen institutions cooperate, and also the industrial world and all the stakeholders in civil society. It is high time that we take all the opportunities that this plan offers effectively and practically. So we are at a crossroads right now. We have all the necessary conditions to draw benefit from the National Recovery and Resilience Plan for the production of biomethane and for farming in general. We have to be all together. We don't have to waste a minute. Things were done consistently so far with an actual coalition where Parliament has worked very well in approving also some of the fundamental elements we've been talking about today. So the hope for the industrial sector, for the mechanization sector, for farming and for transportation is that investments in biomethane are made possible with no excessive bureaucracy, and that the purchase of biomethane tractor where incentives are foreseen in the plan can take place with no burdensome processes in terms of bureaucracy. Biomethane and biofuels in general must play a role also in regulations. They must be included in the calculations we make to reach CO2 targets in the transportation sector. And this must happen with the review of the Fit for 55 package for tractors, not only for vehicles. One more thing I would like to share with you as a vision. Well, concrete achievements have come out of this of these meetings. So biomethane has to be supported in terms of logistics support. There must be a differentiation in terms of price with respect also to traditional fuel. Beyond the political specifications that are already in place. These are basically my messages. So a fast implementation of the National Recovery Resilience Plan for mechanization in farming, and also a systemic vision to promote the use of biomethane in transportation for final users and also for regulators. Thank you. Well, seeing a biomethane fueled tractor is one of the emotions that moves my heart. 15 years ago, I tested the first moped that fueled by methane, and then I had 2 gas bottles underneath the seat. And it would be great to use that moped now and to go to breeders or to farmers and say, please, fill it up. That would be a dream. It would be the last trend in Milan. Thank you again.